I guess so. I'm here with a man of many talents, so we're going to go through a lot of those. But director, editor, musician, composer, goes on, and basically walking film fucking encyclopedia. Chris Alexander, how you doing, Chris?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for having me, man. You and I have been
Yeah.
doing a little bit of a waltz over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's fine. It's been crazy.
Yeah, what's that? What is that? Going to paraphrase, and I'm going to screw it up. But you want to make God laugh, make plans, or something like that. So whatever.
Yeah,
anyways, we're here now.
That's why. Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't really plan anything. There's no questions or anything. It's just wherever the conversation goes.
Good.
But I mean, it's always very interesting and great to talk to people like yourself who you're not just a director, you're not just a musician, but like you live and breathe film. I mean, you started as a journalist, from Fangoria, and you went on to do some radio. So tell me what started your whole fascination with film and horror.
It's really easy. So my family, not in the business at all, of course, but my parents loved movies. Everybody in my family did. I had an uncle, I had an aunt, very close to them. They all loved pop culture, and they all loved music and movies. And so it was always there. My earliest memories of my dad putting headphones on my head and listening to Jimi Hendrix's Are You Experienced record, and especially a song called Third Stone from the Sun, and telling me to point from left to right where the stereo separation was, and creating all these backstories to the songs. It's an instrumental about banshees coming from space and all this like fantastical shit would always spark my. And in 1978, he brought home a record called Jeff Wayne's musical version of The War of the Worlds, which was big in England, but it never really hit North America. But those of us who know this album, it's gospel. And it was this 2-disc album, prog rock opera with illustrations and, the birds eating the brains of the Martians and the tripods vaporizing Victorian London. Richard Burton was the narrator. Phil Lynott.
I don't know if I've heard the album, but
you got to hear it. If you go to Spotify, it's there in its entirety. In England, it's so big they have a touring show that have the tripods, and Liam Neeson took over for Richard Burton and orchestra.
I'm a huge progressive rock fan. I love.
Oh my god, this is the shit.
Genesis,
anyways,
like all that.
It is so good. So it was cinematic, and falling in love with this weird stuff. I went to a wax museum when I was a kid with my grandmother called the House of Frankenstein in Niagara Falls on the Canadian side when I was really too young to do it, and it scared the shit out of me. And then at the end of it, it spits you out into the gift shop, and suddenly the Carpenter is there. We've only just begun was playing, and I was like, how could I literally be in hell, walk through a door, and suddenly I'm in like la-di-da land? And then that got me intellectualizing the dichotomy between the artifice of horror and how quickly, the lights go back on, you get off the ride, the adrenaline's pumping, and you get kind of back to normal. And then the first thing you want to do is get back on the ride again. Anyways, long story short, I discovered Kiss as well when I was 3 years old. So Gene Simmons was like my first Dracula, because he had fangs on the cover of the Love Gun record.
So all this you ended up doing the magazines for them, right?
I did, yeah. I ended up working with Kiss and Gene for many years. But all this shit was swirling around, and it bit hard. This is before the internet, before VHS. I used to sleep with an alarm clock under my pillow, and I'd circle, certain movies in the TV guide every week that I knew were horror, cross-reference it with my Leonard Maltin video book, and I'd get up at all hours and sneak downstairs and watch movies because no VCR, and here we are. I'd sneak. Fangorias were sort of contraband in Ontario, Canada, where I grew up. And it would be up in the porn shelves, and so I'd be like sneaking up to not to see the nudie stuff, but to see Tom Savini and all this shit, So I mean, there was just a wild coming of age, trying to find, and there was no one else like me, so I couldn't. I had no other real compadres who were into this weird shit. So it was a real personal, singular journey from a young age to learn as much as I could about all this really bizarre, arcane entertainment. And that's what started it, and then it never stopped. And I'm half a century old now, and I can't imagine it'll ever. It will only stop when I do. Every day I wake up, and there's always, we're in a golden age now. There's always more to discover. So it's a never ending quest to advance.
That's what I say about music all the time. As a musician, I've been playing guitar since I'm 11 or 12. I'm 36, 20 something years, and other instruments along the way. It's a never ending journey. Like you never master an instrument.
If you're passionate about, I think if you're passionate about anything,
Oh yeah,
It's
for sure.
you never, no matter what, it's this gnawing thing inside you that you cannot. It's
Yep.
insatiable, and no matter what people tell you or what, there's no stopping it. You cannot stop, and you nor should you, unless it's something obviously all-consuming and very derogatory and something that'll be harmful. You know,
but it goes back to like what you're saying. It boils down to just that curiosity inside all of us, and the people who are able to let it out in those creative ways. It's always going to be there.
Well, yeah, and I mean
that longing to create something else or to perfect things. And I mean, perfectionism is a big part of my maturity as a musician, for sure.
Well, there's also, when then it comes down to what's it's subjective. What the hell does perfection even mean? And it comes to, movies. One thing I really hate, I hate Mystery Science Theater and all that shit. I don't like people telling me what a bad movie is or a good movie is. To me, there's no such thing. The only thing that gives any kind of art its value is if you personally respond to it. So the idea of sometimes perfection when it comes to perfect movie, perfect song, perfect, to me that's all subjective, because sometimes things are too perfect and it robs them of their humanity or their personality. That's why my favorite director is Jess Franco. Although I can't tell you one Jess Franco movie that's in like my top 50 favorite movies of all time, but he's my favorite director.
That makes sense. And I have weird categories like that too, for like
well,
you just said, I have the biggest amount of a certain movies that I enjoy or something, but it won't be those movies won't be in a top list of
right.
It's funny how it turns out like that.
Well, when it comes to Franco, it's sort of like, these artists that their point of view, their sensibility is so singular and so unique. And they're such auteurs that you can't watch one film. He was a musician too, so you can't just experience one entertainment. You have to experience them all to really get a full picture scope of it. So when you love Jess Franco, you don't love this movie, that. You love the body of work. And not all his movies are successful, and they're very sloppy, and they're about as far from fucking perfect as you can get.
Absolutely. I mean, I never got big into his films, which I definitely on a director list that I've wanted to. I love Bloody Moon and a few other movies from the 80s, and I know he's made hundreds of movies, because I think just in the 80s he made 100 movies or something like that.
Well, I mean, and
but there is that huge body of work.
Yeah, that we know of, because we're always uncovering different. He had so many pseudonyms. We're uncovering constantly different movies that
new movies
directed or co-directed or taken over. He lived to work and he worked to live.
Yeah. I mean, very similar to like Roger Corman, and also to just all the low budget kings, and which.
Well, Corman was Cecil B. DeMille compared to Jess Franco. He was pretty much trained on the track guy, and then he ran his own empire for many years, for right till his death. Yeah. So he had a little bit more control of his medium, and he, an intellectual and.
Well, Franco, a lot of that was being a great businessman.
Well, a great businessman, but also a great, his directorial efforts. A great director, underrated. I wrote a book about Corman with Corman, about his directorial output, particularly those great Poe films. But Franco, for example, was a jazz musician by trade, so his movies to me feel like messy, sloppy jazz riffs. 3 a.m.
Yeah. That's a great explanation, because it leads into like what I love about. And it sucks. It's hard to find Blood for Irina, because I've been trying to rewatch that, because I know I saw it back in the day when it came out in early 2012, right? It came out, and I just love your style of just really focusing on beautiful camera work, beautiful visuals, and you do most of the films you've done. You've composed all the music for, right?
All except for Necropolis Legion, but that's sort of a hybrid. I wrote the attempt score. And I gave it to Richard Band, and Richard grew it into a score. There's still some of my music woven into that, but that's more Richard than it is me. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, actually, I've rewatched that this morning, which I really enjoyed.
It's the least of. It's probably the most expensive of my movies. Maybe that's why I like it the least, because I felt like I was trying to make a full moon movie, and it's sort of an uneasy, unholy marriage. It's an uneasy alliance between trying to create a type of film, but also create my own kind of movie. So it feels like it feels like there's another movie trying to scream its way out of that.
You could see some full moon type stuff in there, like with the nipples and stuff in the beginning. Design. Like you could see some of it, but I enjoyed it. It was fun, but that whole mix of audio and visual is something that I'm guessing you're a big Fulci fan, because yeah, very reminiscent. Your style is of Fulci, so I'm guessing he had
Yeah,
a
no,
big.
I have. I'm not a tattoo guy. I have 3 tattoos. I have one Twilight Zone tattoo over here. One the razor blade with the fangs from the VHS cover of George Romero's Martin here,
Okay.
and then on the back of my neck I have the book of Avon,
Of
the
Avon?
symbol from the
Oh,
Beyond,
that's great.
which I always forget I have because it's on the back of my neck. But I do have that. So yes, I'm a total Fulci junkie. I think in some ways, I probably
he's
comes
a
down
favorite
to
director.
well, not favorite, but Fulci Argento War. I think
Yeah.
I probably lean closer to Fulci than Argento, even though Argento at his best is a little more refined. I appreciate the grandiosity of Fulci a little more, maybe.
Oh yeah, he definitely the way he lingers on things, which is very Italian horror in the first place.
Oh yeah, the lingering.
But he really lingers, like
He gets
and,
right in there, especially.
and doesn't pull away. If it was a Friday film like from the 80s, you just see like Kirsten Glover get the meat cleaver to the face quick, and that's it. It's over. City of the Living Dead, you have the guy being dragged towards that power drill for like it seems like forever and ever.
Yeah. The best. A scene that changed a movie that changed my life as a kid when I rented that thing and did not believe. When you're watching it, you've never seen anything like it. And the drills, as you say, when you're weaned on a certain kind of horror at the time, you're expecting it to pull out, but it did not. So the way he does it, cut to the drill, cut to the head, cut to the drill, cut to the head.
It's so great how he goes back.
And just when it's about to hit, you're like, there's no fucking way the power's going to go out on the drill. Nope, it goes through, and then it takes its time going through, coming out the other side. Oh my God.
Then you get that great shot of it going, twisting on the both sides.
And then Radici's jaw closes out. At the end,
it's such a great effect, and that changed my horror viewing life when I saw City of the Living Dead early on, probably early teens or so.
Me too.
The car scene.
I was 12. The car scene with the eye
that blew me away.
Insane shit.
Probably one of the most memorable deaths in a horror film.
And the
woman puking.
Absolutely, and but outside of that, it's my favorite Fulci movie because I think everything clicks. There's such a pervading feel of doom in that film. There's such a almost fetishization of death. That Fritzi score is so doom laden, and
Fritzi score is excellent.
Yeah, the atmosphere, and then the weird way it accidentally doesn't have an ending because he just cracks the frame out.
Because he had an ending planned or something else, but it didn't come to fruition, didn't work out, so he just had to fuck it and go on the fly.
I think he had it, but then something happened. There was like a mark, some flaw in the film where the kid was running and it started to burn out. And he said, well, that's cool. So they kind of just said, cut it out and ran with that.
Yeah. I mean, I can't understand half the movies anyway, even though I've seen it a million times, so it doesn't matter. It adds to it. It just adds
why
to
would you want
the ambiguity.
Yeah. What could ever coherently explain that madness? I'm glad there's no attempt to. Sometimes those Italian movies, to me, Argento's at his weakest when he tries to, especially when he starts making more Americanized films. Tries to have more exposition, and that's what hurts the movies. We don't need, in Suspiria, a masterpiece, except for when that scene with Udo Kier and Jessica Harper, and he's trying to explain. Fuck off. Who cares? I mean, this doesn't mean.
Get back to the amazing assault on my senses.
Get back to her walking down velvet-lined corridors while Goblin's music blares in the. That's all we care about.
Yeah,
but I think my favorite Argento movie is actually, because it feels more like a Fulci movie, and that's Phenomena, which I saw under the name Creepers when I was a kid.
Yeah, Creepers. Isn't it fun how there's always, for me at least, with all those different titles the Italian films had, there's only one I love. Of all the alternate titles, there's never I like this one just as much or this one the same. If it's Bay of Blood versus Twitch of the Death Nerve, it's Twitch of the Death Nerve. It's the best movie title for me, maybe of all time. Right. And all those alternate titles, I always prefer one to the other. I like Phenomena. I think it's a little better than Creepers, but those are closer.
The Phenomena is too weak, and I'm glad. To me, the Americans sometimes knew what they were doing. The Americans knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing since the first wave of Italian films. When AIP bought Mask of Satan and called it Black Sunday, or Three Faces of Fear and called it Black Sabbath, or The Evil Eye. The Girl Who Knew Too Much and they called it The Evil Eye. Yeah, I think
the Evil Eye. Actually, I like that title compared to The Girl Who Knew Too Much.
Oh yeah. They're trying to tap it onto a Hitchcock thing there for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, and then when it comes to yeah, a lot of that gate and Fulci and City of the Living Dead, I'll always call it the Gates of Hell because I think that's a better
Yes,
title, and that's how I saw it
I,
under
d-
free.
I do too, but I know it more as City of the Living Dead, just
Okay.
from
Yeah,
the
well, you're a
plays
little
I've seen over
younger.
the
You're a
years.
little
Yeah,
younger.
I'm
It didn't
36. Yeah,
exist. It didn't exist under that title when I was a kid. It was only the Paragon
yeah.
VHS of the Gates of Hell with the warning on the front of the cover that dared you to rent this fucking thing.
Yeah. I've
And
seen the cover. Yeah, it's
so
great.
good, so good, so good. Yeah,
So what with both those mediums, with music and film, that obviously you had such a huge passion for from the
Hmm.
beginning.
Yeah.
What did you get into or try pursuing first? Did you pick up music first, a musical instrument, learning that, or did you go lean more into film at first?
Well, I think it's more like the philosophy is that all the medias are linked, and to
Just
me,
came
it's,
together.
well, to me, it's all music, and I think a good, film is music, even if you're not, look at some of the great silent films. There's no sound, but there's music because
Yeah,
it's the way you cut the whole Russian philosophy of editing, and there's a musicality to the cutting. If you don't have a sense of
absolutely.
music, you will not a rhythm. You're not going to be a good filmmaker. You need to know it's all about the timing, the creating emotions, stirring the soul. And to me, writing is the same thing too. It's about taking words. You know when to have the pauses. You know when to run the sentences on. You know when to go big. You know when to pull back. You know how to stir emotion by using words as your notes. And so for me, as far as professionally is concerned, I did go to film school. The intent was always to make movies, but also make the music for the movies and also have control of the medium. So write the movies. And now when I came of age, there was no video. It was film. We shot on 16 millimeter film. It was very expensive. So I dropped out of film school really early. And then I went to an art school in the Ontario College of Art. And that was even more bullshit because I wanted to make weird fucking movies and they wanted me to
Yeah,
paint bunnies jumping over fucking fences and
yeah.
stuff. I was
It's
like,
like it's the same to me.
I'm out of here. But I couldn't afford to make a movie, and we're in Canada here, so there was no culture in Toronto to get out there and make your own films. Really, there's only a handful of
Yeah,
people doing it. So I ended up making music and marrying it to films I was making, and did a live action show that I like musical performance that I would tour with bands. And so that was me making a movie that existed in my mind in a bigger, and also adding the theater in there a little bit.
yeah,
So that was always the case. And then I realized that the cheapest way to do it, I was a good word wrangler and I could put pen to page and write. So, and then I got a job working as a publicist at Warner Brothers Films. So I had
yeah,
access to all the films and around the world. And I had Warner Brothers Italy, Warner Brothers Burbank. Plus I had access to all the film critics. So what I did
right.
is I started seeing the movies early before anyone else did, because I would see it sometimes like 6 months before they came out.
Yeah,
And I would use that edge by then parlaying my connections to get jobs writing as a film critic and as a
yeah,
journalist. And then that's how I got involved with Rue Morgue magazine, as I discovered that in Canada. It was like our Fangoria. It was new and exciting. We didn't have anything like that. This is like 2001. And
yeah,
I jumped into there and I started writing full time for those guys for many, many years. So then that was, to me, even though I was writing about movies, it was still in a way creating a cinematic kind of language. It was,
absolutely.
my writing is kind of like that. It's kind of atmospheric and energetic. It's very jazzy. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, I did that. And then the writing just ended up taking over Fangoria and getting a little bit more street cred, if you will, for being the boss of this big
yeah,
mag. And that just turned into, I was doing live music all the time, and then it was like creating a movie. So I wrote the soundtrack first for Blood for Irina, and I grew the movie out of the soundtrack and the location. I found this great
that's
motel.
great. That's something I was going to ask you. Is
Yeah,
were the
always
films and
music
did
first.
you do that? Yeah, the music
Always.
leads to the rest.
Yeah,
Okay,
I create
very
a piece of music that's evocative in my mind of what I can see, and then I find a location. And so with Irina, I found a motel that was about to be destroyed. It's like 70-year-old motel on the lake,
yeah,
and I basically paid them a song to take it over for a month. And I shot the whole movie there in piecemeal over a month with the music in my mind. So when it came down to the edit, I had the music first, so I cut to the music, right? And
yep,
and then I've done this. That's wash, rinse, repeat. That's what I've done over the span of 10 films so far in 10 years. Yeah.
yeah. That's I was definitely thinking that. as being part of your possible creative process because it
Oh
makes
yeah,
a lot of sense.
yeah.
And I can understand and I get now, like, you know, from being a musician all these years, I always had the musician part, not like a visual medium part. But since I started the channel, especially since I started editing, you know, like all the videos and stuff, now it makes a lot of sense. Like, especially like you said with editing, you have to have that timing and like a musician almost stuff. So editing a song right to the beat or right to the cut of a scene or an image or something, like, it's a science. It's another form of art. That definitely is something that you keep on learning as time goes.
Yeah, you always say you get better adept at wielding the brush. You know, you kind of
Yeah.
learn through mistakes, learn through success of how the best form of communication is. And you find your own language, which to me is the most important thing you can do as an artist. And I'll be pretentious and call myself one of those. I think I've earned it to some degree.
You definitely earned it.
Yeah, so you know, you'll say that you do, and I think my language is mine. You know what I mean? Like I think the way I make movies is a certain kind of way. That my sound of music, I don't use software when I do music for electronic stuff. I use only analog equipment. I've used the same equipment for 25 years. So there's a specific way I've designed it to running through pedals and various things to have a certain sound.
Yeah.
So I have a certain sound, a certain way I write. A certain,
your own unique way that
it's my own little thing, and that's partially by design, but also partially just doing it for so long, you get into a comfort zone and you stick with it and refine it as you go. Yeah,
exactly. You see what works and what you personally enjoy and get out of it, and then things that don't work as well. You know, it goes by. That was an experiment for this time, you know, and whatever sticks, it accrues over time, and then you just have, like you said, your own, you know, unique trademark stamp on film, which it's not many other directors that I could think of that have a style like you. Like I said, very influenced by like certain directors that I can pick out, like Fulci, especially that I mentioned. But you have a very unique way, and I think that has a lot to do with it. Is the fact that you start with from a musical frame of mind and stay in that frame of mind the whole time, but you start it from the music end and create out of that medium. And I think that's very unique. You don't see that a lot.
You mentioned Fulci with his lingering. That's always appealed to me. Werner Herzog does that too.
Oh yeah.
Franco does that too. But when it comes to Jess Franco, people are like, oh, well, you like those movies because you like to see titties and ass. And as much as I love tits and ass,
of course, that's half the positive.
I'm not going to deny it. I mean, I love women, but that's not why I watch the Franco movies. It's just a little bit icing on the side. Franco, I think he said this in an interview that he's a voyeur and he's just as obsessed with pointing his camera at a woman's body as he is pointing out to the ocean and watching a boat. And I love in his movies how we'll go from like Vampiros Lesbos. We literally will go from Soledad Miranda's body to him looking out the window and fixating and lingering on a boat. And you may think, well, that has nothing to do with anything. It's like,
but it's like that's his mind.
Well, it creates a sense of like he's attributing the eroticism or the sensuality, the earthy sensuality of a woman to his connections to nature and water and being isolated. And like, there's just a poetry to that. So I think that's what I sometimes do with my movies. I don't even try to at this point. I can't help it. That's what I do.
You when it seeps in, and
I either stick with something or my attention wavers to something else, and I'll if I find like a crack in the wall interesting, I'll lock the camera on that for like a couple minutes, which may annoy some people. I know it does. If you look at reviews of like go to a Letterboxd review if you dare.
Yeah, I saw on the IMDb.
Yeah, like pick like something like Parasite Lady. You'll see like 0.5 star. Fuck this movie. Fuck this director, and then the next one down will be 5 stars. Like you can't. There's no middle ground, right?
Yeah, it's a love it or hate it style for sure. Yeah. I mean, because it's like I said, you have that passion behind it, and you have just you look at art, like film, as just a pure art form from many different mediums as different standpoints. Some people don't like movies like that. It's just not for them. You know, that focus that don't have a heavy-handed. I don't want to say hold your hand, but they aren't so heavy-handed with exposition. So like,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
That are more mainstream. Yeah, exactly.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I love all cinema, and sometimes you just want to watch a film and lose yourself and be entertained. You want things to move quick. You don't want to have to work. And I tell you that most of the movies I make, if I wasn't making them, I probably wouldn't want to watch them. Some of them, you know what I mean? Like, I mean,
yeah. Oh, I get
it's just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, I just don't. Sometimes I'm not in the mood to work so fucking hard at a movie. I just want it to wash over me. Now, that said, the movies that stick with me personally are usually the ones that make me uncomfortable or even bore me sometimes, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of movies that I remember seeing Herzog's Nosferatu as a kid and finding it unbearably fucking boring. It didn't deliver what I expected out of a horror film. And then as I aged, remembering certain moments of it that I could never shake out of my head, the mummies at the beginning, the first appearance of Klaus Kinski in the doorway of the castle, the plague scene, the scenes with the rats through Bremen or whatever that is. It's Bremen, right?
The stairwell.
Anyway, and of course,
so many great moments.
Isabella Gianni's looking out, sitting at the graveyard with her back and looking out into the. Those things stuck in my mind, so I had to keep going back and back and back. And now it's like my favorite vampire film of all time because there's a certain power there that even when it annoyed me and bored me, it made me want to keep going back again. So my favorite films tend to be those movies that I don't always get the first time around. I don't always respond to them the first time around. And the ones that work really quick, lightning fast, usually they're one and done for me. Good piece of bubblegum. Chew it, like it, spit it out, forget it.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. And that's why I always put a lot of emphasis on rewatching films now and then, or diving back to something I haven't seen in forever. Because I mean, there's some that just never clicked for me that are classics too. Like Rosemary's Baby. I am not a fan of Rosemary's Baby. I never have been. I've tried 3-4 times. I've tried giving that movie chances versus a movie I saw more recently because it was almost lost to physical media with Mia Farrow, Full Circle, The Haunting of Julia.
Oh, well,
that movie's a fucking masterpiece. That movie's in my top 20 films.
So is Rosemary's Baby. I again, it's all subjective. It depends on how you interpret the film. But there's a sense of, with Polanski, there is a weird sensibility sometimes with his movies.
I like Repulsion. Repulsion's a great
film. But do you like The Tenant?
I never saw The Tenant.
Okay, so watch The Tenant. So here we have Repulsion, which is much more jet black European psychodrama. Rosemary's Baby sort of grows out of that. William Castle produced it. It's very American. And then he goes back to Europe and makes The Tenant, which is sort of the full circle closure of those three movies. And The Tenant has just watch The Tenant. And then when you're done that, go back to Rosemary's Baby.
Right.
Try that experiment. Try it.
I got to check that out because I just rewatched Rosemary's Baby for the fourth time or so, maybe when Apartment 7A, the prequel, came out.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, it was all right. Actually, I thought it was more enjoyable at that point than Rosemary's Baby usually is for me.
Yeah, I can see
that. Then I rewatched Rosemary's Baby right after that, and I actually got a little more out of it than I usually have in the past.
Yeah.
So that might be a cool little experiment to try.
I'll tell you that The Exorcist never worked for me as a kid. I always thought I saw it first on TV when it was censored. So, she doesn't swear, she says, instead of sucks cocks in hell, she says something like,
something stupid that they always put
darn socks in hell or something stupid.
Yeah, something that I never understood how they came up with the censor words.
Well, it was hilarious. I mean, I collect 16 millimeter prints and I have a wealth of TV prints, alternate versions of movies where they've looped in different dialogue, and some of it's gold. But Scarface is the best, right? Scarface is the best.
Scarface.
Tony Montana is sitting there with Manny on the beach, and he just looking at ogling all the women, and he said, "This sounds like a great big pussy waiting to be fucked." But in the TV version of it, he says, "This sounds like a great big chicken waiting to be plucked." So all that shit.
I remember hearing that actually.
Yeah, it's
that's an experience. Just to tell it. If people haven't seen Scarface and watch this, if you haven't seen it on like the cut version on network TV, funny. Give it a shot. It's almost like Riff Tracks level. Like
it is so wicked. I mean, the things that movie should never. I mean, the censor must have just been sweating bullets trying to clean that.
Yeah, it probably ended it all after that job. Like I'm never editing it again.
Back to what I was saying about The Exorcist, though, it didn't work for me as a kid. I wasn't raised Catholic. I didn't go to church. But then I remember for a long time, the first time it worked for me, I was a grown ass adult, and I saw it theatrically. I went to the theater to see it, and that's when The Exorcist grabbed me by the throat and said, you weren't paying attention, man. And it changed my complete my understanding my appreciation of it totally changed to see it trapped in that movie theater and slave to that sound design. And now I don't argue with people when they say it's one of the scariest, if not the scariest American movie ever made. I can't argue with that because it's to see that thing.
It is hard though.
Oh, it's fucking devastating. And also as a parent now, I'm a parent, so
yeah, same.
Come at it from that point
you
of
see
view.
things differently. It's weird. Ever since my daughter's 10, ever since she was born, and just it's weird. Like you said, like movies that will just be like a one and done thing for me, like Annabelle. The whole Conjuring verse stuff. I like the first two Conjurings. Annabelle, that movie, didn't care for it much, but there's a scene in there that really messed me up during watching it in theaters when she takes the doll and she's banging it on the crib, but then it throws on the ground and turns into her kid.
Right.
Like that really got me because it came out when maybe my daughter was 2 years old, and I'm thinking about it in a way that I never would have looked at it otherwise.
Oh yeah.
Definitely, it definitely changes how you.
But it's so
subjective.
That's the beauty of the genre, right? Because what scares you as a child is not going to scare you when you're 50. Your life experience changes, therefore your triggers change. I can't watch. I remember going to see the Lars von Trier's Antichrist at a press screening.
Oh, okay.
Huge Von Trier fan, and then that opening, if you've seen the movie.
Yeah, it's been a while, but crazy movie.
Oh yeah, like Willem Dafoe and body doubles of Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg are shagging in the shower, and their child wanders off to the precipice of their building and falls to death while they're fucking. And I almost walked out of the theater. I'm like, I can't do this fucking movie.
Yeah,
I stuck with it. I love that movie, but I don't think I want to ever watch it again.
That's what I remember feeling from it. I do remember that intro. That's what I remember from watching it. I think I only saw it that one time and then never watched it again because it was like, all right, that was fucking intense.
Yeah.
Great. Very well done. I don't know if I want to go through that again. And there's definitely a handful of movies.
Well,
there's many.
There's a few though. Yeah, there's a few. I have a huge respect. A huge respect for like that movie. Cannibal Holocaust as well as another one.
Cannibal Holocaust is a favorite of mine.
But I don't get. I know you like that, and the score we've talked about off camera. Rizzo Ortolani's theme is the most beautiful movie for the most hideous, beautiful music for the most hideous of movies.
Absolutely.
But that's a movie that I'm not in any rush to watch more than I've seen it a couple times. Like it's burned into the brain.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. I don't really need to go back into the jungle with those motherfuckers anytime soon. You know what I mean? It makes me feel. It's a bad movie.
Oh yeah, I mean the ending isn't great. It doesn't end on an up note.
No, and also I like
except for the music.
I like animals, and I just don't want to see.
That's a big point with. I mean, people not even giving the movie a watch at all. It's just for people who are huge animal lovers who I can't watch that movie because I know the history about it, which is insane. I mean that he got brought up on murder charges even.
Well, he did. Yeah, I spent a week. I spent a week with him in Italy.
How was that?
They screened my Blood for Irina sequel, Queen of Blood, there in the beaches of Nettuno, which was insane, outdoors in a castle. But I was with him, and so we were traveling around in this caravan for many, many days. Me, Diodato, Luigi Cozzi, Claudio Simonetti. I mean, pitch me, right? Like that's the Italian horror movie.
Right. Yeah, I know, right?
But spending time with Diodato, who's now no longer with us, sadly, was one of the funniest fucking experiences of my life. He literally was the Italian Larry David. He was this neurotic, hilarious,
I love
yelling, screaming, raging. He at one point it was like 4 a.m. We were screening movies all night. We were going back to the hotel in the bus and the thing we had, the limo, and he gets to there. He's like, I go, what's up? What's going on? He's like, my camera's gone. I don't know where my camera is. And Simonetti's laughing, and Cozzi's laughing, and I'm like, dude, did you check your bag? He's like, of course, I'm checking my bag. I left it out there. I gotta go. You wait. I gotta go. And he vanishes, and he's screaming, his arms flailing. Simonetti's laughing so hard, and he barely gets out. Like he does this every time.
Where was the kid? Was it in his bag?
Of course, he goes all through the fucking venue. He's combing around. We're like half an hour sitting there in this fucking bus waiting for Diodato. He comes back and he's like, I never find it. I'm like, dude, check your fucking bag again. Goes to the bag. Goes over. He's like, it's in there. Hey, it's here. Yeah, it's here. So
That's so
funny.
funny, man.
So he
I
was such
love
a funny
I
guy.
love Larry David. I love Curb
Oh
Enthusiasm.
yeah,
So
well
just and just seeing interviews of Diodato in the past, just picturing that, you could see it now. Like when you
oh
mention
yeah,
it, I could see it, but now
yeah,
within the context with that story
yeah.
and the
Oh, he
analogy,
was
oh, that's
Larry. He
funny.
was absolutely in his declining or his, his later years, definitely Larry David,
That
100%.
that's
I'm a huge
hilarious.
Curb fan too, by the way. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. What do you think of the whole finale? I didn't see the finale yet.
Oh, it's
The
great.
series finale.
It's
Is it?
great. The only thing
Did
that's
he end it good?
yeah, it's fantastic. But the only thing that
Yeah,
sucks about it is, Richard Lewis died right afterwards,
yeah,
so the
I know
ghost
that
of
sucks.
Lewis is there, But no, it's. I mean, it's great. That's a series
Yeah,
that I'll watch it right to the end, then I'll go right back to the beginning and just
yeah, I do the
keep
same
it,
thing.
keep it buzzing in the background.
All right, yeah. I always need something like I'm a night owl,
Yeah,
always my entire life, and but
yeah,
if I feel that I'll be passing out at some point, 4 or 5 in the morning, I need something on, and it
right.
goes back to being a kid. Like when I didn't have cable in my room, I just had a VHS player,
Mm-hmm.
then like I would just throw on the same movie and leave it on in the background playing every night for like a week or two, and then switch to another VHS, switch to another one. So like John Carpenter's Halloween, which is the first horror movie I saw at 6 years old, that was ingrained in my memory every single night. And then like Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2 would be the next movie. And I threw that in, which is such an underrated movie. What do you feel about that one?
Oh, I agree. But first of all, back to back to tying into the music. When
Yeah.
there's a movie that you love and that especially a music-driven film like Halloween, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes like a great song, and it is literally when you're playing in the background, like I do play movies all the time. You don't have to watch
Mm-hmm.
them; you just hear them, and it is like
Absolutely.
it's like a jukebox. You listen to the track, right? But your question was about which film again? Oh, Book of Shadows.
Book of Shadows, Blair Witch
Yes.
2. Yeah.
I've always been a great defender of Book of Shadows. Joe
Me too.
Berlinger directed that, and that was,
Yeah.
to me, being a huge fan of the Paradise Lost documentaries about the
Yeah.
West Memphis 3. When
That's
I
why
saw
I got
Book of
hired
Shadows,
for Book of Shadows.
right? I know, and that's what the beauty of Book of Shadows is it's a weird, dark, dirty inversion. It's more of a fantastical
psychological dive.
Well, it's more of a fantastical version of the West Memphis 3. It's like, but what if they did it? What if they fucking did it? And this is that basically that's what that movie is. So I've always thought it was, again, not perfect, but the things about it that are good are really fucking good. Really.
A lot of it, and a lot of the stuff that holds it back. Well, I mean, not it wouldn't be perfect even without this, but there's just a lot of the studio interference in that movie.
Yeah.
That of restructuring it and putting the kill scenes in the beginning and stuff, so it makes you it gives shit away way too early in the movie.
Way too early. Yeah, I talked to
that's the director's cut I've wanted for. I've been talking to Berlinger and his assistant back and forth for the last like year and a half trying to get him on, but he does like 5 documentaries a year.
I know.
Like the guy is insane. His work ethic.
I reached out to him years ago when I was running Fango, just because I was like, no one's defending this movie, and I reached
That's why I reached out to. Yeah.
I'm like, I said, listen, let's do a 2-part big article in the mag, just you telling your side of the story. So he did, and we became friends because of that. But there's I forget what issues it is, but there is a big 2-part thing with Berlinger in my and I talking about that.
I probably have read it. Because I love that movie so much. I've read everything about it, like saw every video that there is behind this anything. Just because I mean I have a fan edit that has been going around maybe the last 5 years or so that sticks pretty much to his whole vision there for that movie, and it's pretty much the closest we have to a director's cut, unless he one day decides to put out an actual director's cut. Because he said in like a few correspondences back and forth with him, he says like it's real great to hear that there's people out there defending this movie and that love love the film. He's very gracious about it. Yeah, he's very gracious about it.
Yeah.
What movies? What would you say are your favorite films that you've done? Because then you have the trilogy, the Irina trilogy, which is Blood for Irina. What's this? Oh, shit, I'm sorry. What's the name of the second one?
Queen of Blood, and then there's Blood Dynasty.
Queen of Blood, and then Blood Dynasty, right? So, what are your favorite films in your mind? Like, what were your favorite ones that you look back at now and say, I think these are my favorite films that I've done?
I don't know. Each one of them was made at a certain point in my life, so each one of them kind of are indicative of something I was trying to say about even subconsciously about what I was kind of living through at the time. And again, Pinky's a pretentious asshole here, but it's true. And I think with Queen of Blood, I would say Queen of Blood because the ambition was so high with that movie, but the budget was infinitesimal. And it was myself, it was produced with Alex Cavanaugh, who did all the costumes and built the traps for the Saw movies. She just wanted to do something with me, so we did this movie together. And the aspirations were to create this big, sprawling, existential Western that transcended time and space and really cosmic, but using the idea of Irina being reborn into this alternate dimension and creating like a sense of like nature being this force that religion always tries to confine. And anyways, it was all these heady themes. And we had Ogre from Skinny Puppy. I love all those type of things, all those subjects. Sure. And I flew an Ogre from Skinny Puppy from LA to be the creature. And so everything was there, but we just didn't have the money to fully realize it. So when I look back at it, I'm like, well, I'd love to remake that movie properly. And the Irina movies, all three of them, is one big cosmic fever dream thing. That would be something. That would be one hell of a project. I would love that, but it would require budget, which if you're in this game, which I'm a Charlie Band guy now, so it's like the philosophy, like you could spend 5 years trying to get the money together to make one movie, or you could make 50 movies in that 5 years. Which one would you rather do? So I have no patience to play. I've done that. I've been down that road so many times. And you've seen. I see it all fall apart. I had Nicholas Winding Refn, who loved Queen of Blood, come on board and was producing a movie for me. And it took us like a year. We had we had people, and then it all fucking fell apart. And I was like, I can't do this again. It's bad for my health. Yeah. So, but Queen of Blood, yes. But I think the last one I made to date, Parasite Lady, I think is probably my favorite because it has all the themes that I've explored in the other movies. But I feel it like there's something clean, crisp about it. It's perfectly realized. I think some of the imagery in it is totally controlled, super strong. The lead is this beautiful woman named Ariel Edwards, who looks like a young Barbara Steele. So the way the light hits her face and her body, and she's just. I mean, that means a lot in your films as well, just because. Well, they're all female driven. Focus on not just the focus on just the visual and the camera work of how you do linger on things and the way you do shoot things from very unique angles, stuff that adds a lot. Yeah, but also women too. So like, there's barely any men in my films. Yeah, I've noticed. That's not because I'm like, It's like I just find women more interesting. So if I was a painter, I would rather rather than. And I feel masculine energy is like this big fucking cinder block. Well, I don't make those kind of movies. I make these equating, vampirism with women. Anyways, it's a whole thing I can't even quite articulate. Yeah. But so they're mostly female-driven films, and I just find Parasite Lady is the most purely feminine. I don't know. I can't explain it, but yes, I would say yes. That's on my list now. Yeah, it's on Tubi. It's on Tubi. I know it's your newest one. It's one of those short films I made, like with I created Delirium Films during the pandemic, and it was a way to kind of just make these really short, hour-long, just around that running time, a little bit less. Weird little European style films, and the third one, the final one, not the final, there'll be more, but the third one is Parasite Lady. And I just feel it's I think I'm at my best with that film. It's just my favorite. And if that was my last film, if I croaked tomorrow and I never made another one, you'd be happy with it. I'd be okay. Yeah. Cool. I got to check that one out. And you brought up Charlie. So first of all, people, followers of mine and people who watch, thank this man right here on the screen for having Charles Band on the channel, because I can't thank you enough for that, my friend. That meant a lot. Charlie's a great guy. Oh no, absolutely. But I mean, I'll always be indebted to you just for that. But just when you met up with Charles Band, that's when you started Delirium magazine with him, right? Yeah. So he was in Toronto at a convention. I was running Fango. The publisher at Fangoria, long story short, was a maniac, and he was killing the magazine slowly. And I was myself and my designer, Bill Mahali, and we were paying out of pocket sometimes to even get the mag to stands. And people don't know how hard we worked to get that thing to stands against this maniac. But so I could read the tea leaves that the ship was going to sink. And Charlie was in Toronto, and we'd known each other virtually for a while. I said, let's meet up for dinner and talk about movies. And so he took me to a steakhouse because something happened at a convention he was at. They didn't ship his merchandise. So he was like, I got nothing to do. So we went out, we closed the restaurant, we had a great time, and killed a couple bottles of wine and talked about his father and his life in Italy, and amazing night. And I just said offhand, dude, why don't we start our own magazine? He's a great idea. I went home. He took a limo to the airport. Off we went. A week later, I get a call, and he's like, so what are we going to call this mag? And I was like, wow, okay. And that was my first experience with Charlie, being reckless to the point of I'm impressed with his reckless behavior. Sometimes I'm like, you're going too fast. But Charlie, if an idea pops into his head, it
just goes
trains on the track. That fucking thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
He doesn't just talk about doing shit. He's a doer.
Yeah.
So we had the magazine done in a couple months, and it was out. We did a signing at Dark Delicacies in LA, and it was fucking real. And now we're almost 10 years into this thing now. I think our 40th issue is in production.
That's great.
Yeah. So and somehow, some way during this time doing this magazine with Charlie, I got dragged into this, a little bit of this. Full Moon was at a weird spot when I came on board. They were kind of limping along a little bit. I was pulled in to do this, pulled a little bit of this. I'm like the guy who writes like 95% of the language that comes out of Full Moon now. From press releases to the copy on the back of the box.
Oh yeah, I know you do.
It's all me, right? So somehow that became me. And then I don't know how it happened. There's only like 3 or 4 of us running that entire company now.
That's what I remember early on when we started corresponding. I remember messaging the Full Moon Features Instagram saying, thanks again for whatever the last thing was. If this is you too, Chris.
Well, I don't. We have a.
I found out it wasn't you, but I was.
There was we have an amazing human named Gigi who runs that.
Yeah.
So no, that wouldn't be me. I think for a while it was me, maybe on Facebook, until I realized I thanks but no thanks. I don't want anything to do with that shit.
Yeah. So, well, that's one thing I was thinking earlier is to ask is, what do you from being having the background as a journalist, with magazines, which nowadays look where we are technologically nowadays, how big of a change has that whole industry been? It's just as a horror journalist and horror magazines, a lot of them do just go on the internet and post articles on the internet and the websites, or they have every social media there is, but it had to be a huge change. Well,
when I came on board with Fango, internet was already becoming the fucking net. It was well established.
Yeah.
Sites like Bloody Disgusting, Dread Central were king. Fangoria was
they were still up.
Right. We were coming out of a recession too, so people weren't buying as much. And also the Fangoria model was, here we got this new scoop and we're going to put it on the cover, this new hot. Well, today's scoop is on the internet in 30 seconds. And then by the time we get to print into newsstands, nobody gives a shit. That's why I went into a different direction, understanding that the magazine, the people that were going to buy it were the collectors and who maybe wanted to explore other things rather than the next fucking Freddy sequel or whatever, So I went a little more esoteric with it, a little bit into the past, and a little bit more even expanding what the definition of the word horror even meant. And so you're trying to create something that was, almost like little books every month, like that were sometimes themed a certain way. So what I learned right from that, formative years at Fango, being the boss, was to make a magazine survive, you have to make it have a kind of a standalone singular voice. And it has to do something that the internet is not doing. So no quick hot takes on things, longer articles, a little bit more involved. People that actually read physical media will take time with it, read a little bit here, put it down, take a little bit later, read the rest. And maybe if you write something that's good enough, there will be some historical value to it where you'll want to go back to it and refer to it. One of the other thing I learned really quickly is that with the changing of servers, and we would have this vast collection of reviews and essays on Fangoria.com, and then we would get wiped. And then all that shit would be gone as we restructured and something else. We'd get hit by a virus. So all this great material was gone, but all the shit that was printed is there, forever. As whatever forever is, and we're on the space rock. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, exactly.
So
could be all
right. So the business changing, online media becoming king. Everyone suddenly becoming a writer because they're on social media. Everyone's opinion is now law, and
absolutely.
That's what changed. That's what changed everything, But there's always going to be a market for good writing with a good point of view, and also there's no one can beat the sensuality of holding something intangible in their hands, as opposed to this.
That's so true.
This fucking device that's burning our retinas and turning us into zombies.
And everything's up in the cloud somewhere, and
right,
you're not holding any of it.
No, and I really think there's even though there's no walking this back, obviously.
Yeah.
But I see there's a generation of kids I think that are not only themselves slave to these devices and their screens, they watch their mom and dads, fucking around, and they're like, ugh, no. I think that we're gonna see. I'm already seeing a little bit of a rebound interest in print. We've already seen it happen with vinyl. Old media becomes vinyl not just niche, but suddenly becomes more like driving the industry to some degree. Yeah. And I think it's going to come back. I don't think it ever went away. It changed. We had to change with it. But I think there's always going to be a place for printed media for sure.
Yeah, especially with I know there's been a lot of. I unfortunately I don't collect really any physical media anymore, music or movies. It's just basically when Napster hit when I was a teen. Once that happened, and music, I pretty much just downloaded it, and then the same thing happened down the road when streaming became a thing. Just because we're a country of laziness and convenience, so
that's okay. Spotify's fucking amazing. Spotify's amazing, and the fact that a kid today can listen to whatever is hot and popular, and then they can find sift new stuff of time. And discover shit. I mean, I'm still discovering music I didn't never know knew it even existed. It's just an endless quest. It's amazing. But by the same token, I have a huge vinyl collection. I have a fucking jukebox behind me.
I just saw that.
Yeah, this is the NSM Festival jukebox that was in Shaun of the Dead. Same model.
Oh, nice.
The one that the bartender goes through. I also collect 16 millimeter prints. I'm surrounded here by stacks and stacks of film cans. And to me, that there's no greater pleasure I have. And I don't really screen these movies for anyone else but myself and my kids, my girlfriend sometimes. Yeah. But mostly just myself. There's no greater pleasure, uncomplicated pleasure than threading that projector, taking that time to go in there, wind it around, smell the print. They have the different scents. Some are in the state of decay. Some just have that great film smell. And then watching the warmth of it going through the machine and projecting. There's nothing like it. Nothing to me. So. Oh, yeah. You can have streaming until you do your fucking blue in the face. Great. You can absorb your entertainment real quick and dirty. But to have that relationship with film, which is alive, to me it's greater. Now it's an expensive hobby. I do not recommend it because it's like, it's a bad addiction I have to buying films. They're not cheap. I have a print of Dawn of the Dead. My Dawn of the Dead print is worth $10,000 for fuck's sake. And it's not even, it's pink and it's still worth that much. So
imagine pristine condition.
As close I don't think they exist. I don't think they exist.
I was going to say, or as close as possible, too.
Rubenstein fucking destroyed most of those prints back in the day, or had them destroyed now that they existed. So there's only a couple that I know that are actually out there. Mine's one of them.
Oh, that's great. I'm gonna guess here, but I'm gonna say dawn, night, or day for you.
No, dawn. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured by the poster, but
yeah, I mean, night's up there too.
I've always been day. Oh, that's right. That's right. I couldn't see it because of black and white.
Yeah.
But day has always been my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
I think day is like Savini's magnum opus.
Oh, yeah.
Even though he had a lot more help, with K&B and stuff. I don't know if was it all three at K&B? I think it was Nicotero and Berger.
Yeah, because Nicotero's in it, right?
Yeah.
So it was all three. Yeah.
So I mean, of course, he needed a lot more help because look at the scope of the effects work in Day versus anything else, like versus Maniac or the slashers in the '80s that he was doing so many of. Just the zombie makeup alone.
There is something to be said for the. To me, Dawn of the Dead is why it's my favorite for so many reasons. It changed my life as a kid, and the music again, the Goblin stuff, the scratch score stuff, the Wolf Library needle drop stuff, but also the and
the gonk too.
Yeah, all that needle drop that found that library shit. But it's the look of the zombie. So there's something to be said with Savini just painting that gray makeup, which ended up coming across as blue. But there's a ghostliness to it that harkens it back to the poetry of something like Carnival of Souls that I find so fucking haunting about Dawn of the Dead. And it's also a great, I don't know, to me it's Romero at his most ambitious, poetic. It has a bit of that European sensibility to it too, because Argento was involved in financing. And there's an existentialism quality too, with all these people trapped in this self-made hell. And I can watch Dawn of the Dead. I can watch it like once a week, and I'll never get tired of Dawn of the Dead.
There's a handful of movies I'm the same way with. I'm sure we all are as film fanatics. But it's a masterpiece of a film. It's funny. It's just funny how people have different opinions and likes. One of the things that I've never really cared for as much in Dawn is the makeup for the zombies.
I love
how different how people experience things differently like that.
I totally understand why, but there's something that speaks to me of the crudeness of them. They're more human.
Souls, that's true.
Well, yeah, they're more human in Dawn of the Dead, in Day of the Dead, and it's staggering the fucking effects in that thing. But there's a certain kind of lack of humanity in them, where you're kind of, to me, it's like you're looking at the special effects too much. You're like, okay, look at the dentures, and you're looking at the parts. And I mean, I just rewatched it again. I've seen it a million times, but I've rewatched it again, and I like it I like it more every time I've seen it. Now, the first time I saw it, real quick story. In Ontario, we had this really bad spate of Dawn was not actually, I think it was cut to shit, but it was barely screened in Canada. My cousin used to have to drive over the border to Detroit to watch it when he was a kid. He used to tell me all these great stories, but he lived in Windsor, which is right on the border. But Day of the Dead, I remember reading about it in Fango. I was so fucking excited. I was like 11, and video came out. I'm like, whoa, we had a VCR then, so I ran to the video store. I rented it. On the back of the box, there was a sticker over the running time. It's like 92 minutes. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Took it home. It was the Ontario Censor Board cut it to shit. I mean, there's nothing in that Day of the Dead. Every time Dr. Tongue was blacked out at the beginning over the credits.
That's
every time someone like pulled a gun out, or they would cut, like literally, you mother, hey, look.
It's just not the fun Scarface way on network TV.
No, and like literally, it was 15 minutes shorter. There was no gore.
Wow.
I still liked it because I thought Bub was cool. Blah blah blah. So years later, I'm 18. We didn't have Blockbuster Video in Canada. Suddenly, Blockbuster came to Canada, and I guess what they did is bring all their stock, just ship their stock up, and no one was paying attention at that point. And I go to this new Blockbuster Video, which was not known for its wealth of great hidden titles. It was pretty mainstream, but there was Day of the Dead. I look on the back and it's the full running time. I'm like, So I rent this fucking thing. And I had bought Day of the Dead from the mom and pop store, the shitty Ontario cut of it. So I had it at home. I watched Day of the Dead for the first time uncut, and it blew my fucking brains out.
Yeah.
I could not believe what I was seeing.
Yeah. Like, I can't imagine being used to
oh my God, the guts coming out the head.
That is one of the greatest effects for me ever.
The sound effect, though.
I know. It's such
my God, I couldn't fucking believe it. So what I did,
like Asperia, when she gets stabbed right in the heart, the close up, and
that beginning.
When I saw that, I never saw anything like that before, and that's how I felt when I saw Day of the Dead with the head rip.
Well, Suspiria was another one that I saw the hacked up version first, and there was none of that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But so what I did is I took the rental when it came to returning. I took the rental copy. I peeled off all the stickers, and I stuck it on my shit copy, and I threw it back, and I returned my shit copy. And to this day, I still have the stolen Blockbuster tape in the Ontario sleeve. So,
that's something I would have done immediately too. Fuck this movie. I
always thought like,
you're going back to this place.
I wondered if like anyone else wandered into that video store going, oh yeah, but I don't think there was no one else like me at that time. So I don't think anyone
somewhere, someplace exists that copy in that box.
Yeah, for sure. It does. Yeah.
And someone who maybe never saw the uncut version. Maybe they just rented it, they had it, they got stuck with it, and they're sitting there thinking this is the movie for the last 30 years, 20 years.
And the irony is that if I still had that bizarre Ontario butchering job, it would probably be worth more fucking money than the version I have now, because it's so rare, right? It would be so rare that people would want to see this abortion. Rather than, because now you can turn on fucking Tubi and there's Day of the Dead and all its uncut glory. It means nothing now.
Yeah, exactly.
Walking Dead has run circles around that shit on primetime television, so it means war is nothing anymore. But back then, it was a dangerous movie back then here in Canada, especially.
Yeah, right. I mean, there was a few of those, but I want to be respectful respectful of your time. Thank you so much, Chris. This has been a blast talking with you. Thanks everybody who watches this. I'll premiere this sometime in the future, but you guys will hear this at the end of this, so it won't matter. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris, for joining. This has been a blast. I'll end the recording here. Thanks, guys.